Welcome again to our video lesson session, and today we will be discussing activity-based costing. This is chapter 6 of your reference. Before we start, let me give you a background of what is ABC, or activity-based costing. It was first defined by Robert Kaplan and William Burns in the late 1980s. Initially, ABC focused on manufacturing industry, where there is an increasing technology developments and productivity improvements, and some international competitions and automations. It has changed the manufacturing processes and had reduced the incurrence of direct material costs, such as the materials and labor. But because of automation and technological development, it has increased the uh, depreciation related to these machineries, which is an indirect cost. And because of this, ABC was introduced. Cost accountant usually allocates overhead costs to individual products on an arbitrary basis, meaning based on uh, the most related cost drivers that produces that particular cost or factory overhead cost. However, because of the increase in the manufacturing overhead cost because of complexities of production process or introductions of technological developments, the traditional way of allocating factory overhead becomes more inaccurate since factory overhead costs were not cost equally by all products. In a more complex environment where there are many products, machines, and processes to create a product, ABC costing helps the management to determine the true cost and true profitability of individual product and services, and helps them to make better decisions. So let us now define what is ABC. ABC defined as a method of assigning cost to product or services based on the activities and collects costs on the basis of the underlying nature and extent those activities rather than by department or by function for the purpose of determining the product cost. So, in this definition, we will be taught how to allocate cost using activities as a basis. So, uh, in our previous discussion of factory overhead, accounting for factory overhead, which is normally based on direct labor costs and direct labor hours, this time we will base our factory overhead on different activities. Now, before we do that, we have to first understand the terminologies used in ABC costing. When we say activity, this means any event, action, transaction, or work sequence that incurs cost when producing a product. Activity cost pools is a set cost attributed to a distinct type of activity. Cost drivers means any factor or activities that have direct cost and effect relationship with resources consumed. Cost object are responsibility centers, product or services to which costs are assigned. An activity rate is the budgeted activity cost divided by the total activity base usage. Okay, now here are some examples of activities and its activity cost drivers. So, for example, in purchasing, the activity inside the purchasing department or the activity purchasing that drives cost are the number of purchase orders. So the more we process purchase order, the more we function in the purchasing department because that's actually the purpose of the purchasing department to process purchase orders. For receiving department, cost drivers are number of purchase orders and amount of materials. And there are also other cost drivers that can be used inside the receiving activity. Materials handling, for example, number of materials requisition. Set up machines, number of machine setups. Inspection, number of inspection. Engineering, number of engineering change orders. Personal processing, number of employees hires or laid off. Supervisors, number of direct labor hours. Repairs and maintenance, repair hours. Testing, number of tests. Product testing, number of change orders, number of testing hours. Customer orders, numbers of customers. Plant occupancy, square footage, number of employees, labor hours, and machine hours. Now, in activity-based costing, activities and cost drivers are also classified into different levels. And we have cost hierarchy in ABC costing, meaning uh, there is company-wide and unit level wide. The very basic or the smallest unit uh, of in the hierarchy is the unit level activities, in which activities performed every time a service is performed or product is made. So for example, assembling in the production department is a unit level activities because whenever we perform assembly, we are actually producing a product in our company. So this is a unit level activities. So this activity shall be classified as one of the basic uh, smallest activity in our production area or in our computations of or classifications of factory overhead. Now, batch level activities are activities which occur every time a group of units is produced or a series of steps is performed. So, if it is a production of a certain batch order, that particular activity will be classified as a batch level. For product line, activities that occurs to support an entire product line but not always perform every time a unit or batch of product is produced. Facility level are activities that are carried out at the plant level it is independent of the number of units produced. For example, depreciation of the entire building. This is a facility level activities because even if we produce more or less than the planned number of units to be produced, we will still incur depreciation of the building. Okay, now let us now apply uh, ABC costing and let us compare it to the traditional way of assigning factory overhead using traditional costing so that we can have a better understanding of the purpose or objective of ABC costing, and that is to be able to compute the true cost of the product being produced. So I have here the an example of a corporation producing three kinds of product, malay ko, and this is the informations of the three product. We have unit produced and sold. For ma is 2,000, lai is 6,000, ko is 12,000, so, or a total of 20,000 units. For direct cost, direct labor hours, we have 4,000 hours for ma, 2,000 for lay or lai, 4,000 for ko, for a total of 10,000 labor hours. Number of machines set up, 100, 100 times, 150 times, 250 for a total of 500. Number of shipments, 200, 225, 275, and 700. Number of engineering change order, 15, 10, 5, and 30. Direct labor cost per hour, 50 cents for the three products. Material cost per unit, 2 pesos for the three products. The selling price for each product, 50 pesos for ma, 15 for lai, and 10 for ko. The factory overhead cost includes setups of 45,000, shipping cost of 70,000, and engineering cost of 90,000. That is a total of 205,000. So, using ABC costing, uh, we will allocate the 205,000 factory overhead cost to the three products using different activities as compared to traditional costing, which normally use direct labor hours or direct labor cost per unit. Now, for traditional costing, say the factory overhead using traditional costing will be based on total direct labor hours, and that is 10,000 direct labor hours. So to compute for the predetermined overhead rate, we will simply divide the 205,000, that's 45, plus 70 plus 90 to 10,000 direct labor hours. So we will have 20 pesos and 50 cents factory overhead rate per direct labor hours used. So for product ma, it incurs 4,000 direct labor hours. For Lai, 2,000. For Ko, 4,000 for a total of 10,000. Multiplied by the computed factory overhead rate, 20 pesos and 50 cents. So the total FOH for Ma is 82, for Lai is 41, for Ko is 82,000. Total of 205,000. So we did not miss anything from our total factory overhead. Add the prime cost, labor and materials, 2,000 and 4,000, 1,000 and 12,000, 2,000 and 24,000. So the total manufacturing cost for Ma is 88,000, for Lai is 54, for Ko is 108, for a total of 250. Divide by the total unit produced. For Ma is 2,000, for Lai is 6,000, for Ko is 12,000. So we will arrive at the unit cost for each product of 44, 9, and 9 pesos for Ko. So if the selling price is 50 for Ma, less the unit cost of 44, we will arrive at a gross profit per unit of 6 pesos, and that is 12% GP rate. For Lai, selling price of 15 less unit cost of 9, we have a GP rate of 40% or 6 pesos over 15 pesos. For Ko, that's 10 pesos selling price less 9 pesos unit cost, we have a GP rate of 10% or 1 over 10. So using traditional costing, it seems like product Ko has the least GP rate, and in terms of amount, it has the least GP per unit or gross profit per unit. And in terms of amount, Ma and Lai seems like contributes the same amount, although in terms of percentage, Lai seems like contributes the highest percentage, which is 40%. Now, I want you to realize or recognize that the factory overhead rate that we used in this computation is based on the 10,000 direct labor hours. And this 10,000 direct labor hours is not connected or related to the factory overhead cost that we computed as the numerator. 45,000 is the machine setup cost. 70,000 is the shipment cost. 90,000 is the engineering cost. Okay, so we will try to use the activity-based costing, meaning we will not be using 10,000 direct labor hours, and we will be using the activity that creates or accumulates this cost as their denominator for us to know the true cost of each product. Okay, so in ABC costing, we have defined already what is an activity centers. These are the activities that the source of the accumulations of cost. Drivers are the uh, the drivers of cost in that particular activity. The source of the cost of accumulation, the source of the accumulations of cost. So the estimated overhead for The machining activity is 45,000. For shipment is 70. For engineering is 90, for a total of 205,000. Now, this is the total use of cost drivers per activity. We were able to set up machines 500 times. For shipment, we were able to ship 700 times. For engineering change orders, we were able to change 30 times. So if this will be the cost drivers per activity, and we divide this to the total estimated overhead cost, we will arrive at the activity-based overhead rates. So 45 divided by 500 is 90 pesos per machine setup. For shipment, 70,000 divided by 700 equals 100 per shipment. For engineering change orders, that's 90,000 divided by 30, that's 3,000 per change orders. So, after determining the overhead rates per activity, we can now compute for the true factory overhead cost for each product. So, just keep in mind the overhead rate per activity. Machine setup is 90, shipment is 100, engineering is 3,000. So you will just simply multiply the FOH rate with the number of machine setup, shipments, and engineering change orders per product. So for Ma, since it has 100 times of machine setup, 100 times 90, that's 9,000. For Lai, we have 150 machine setup, 150 times 90 is 13,500. For Ko, we have 250 machine setup times 90, that's 22,500. In terms of shipment, Ma has 200 shipments times 100 pesos, that's 20,000. For Lai, we have 225 shipments times 100, that's 22,500. For Ko, we have 275 shipments times 100, 27,500. For engineering change order, we have 15 times in Ma times 3,000, that's 45,000. For Lai, we have 10 times multiplied by 3,000, that's 30,000. For Ko, that's 5 times 3,000, that's 15,000. So if you get the total of all these factory overhead cost, we will arrive at the same total of 205,000 vertically and horizontally. 74, 66, and 65. Now we add now the prime cost, labor, and material. We will now arrive at the total manufacturing cost, 80, 79, and 91. Divide by the unit produced. The unit cost of Ma is 40, Lai is 13.17, and Ko is 7.58. So if they are selling on the same price, selling the same selling price, this is the new gross profit per unit. That's 10 pesos for Ma, Lai of 1.83 cents, and Ko of 2.42. So the percentage of the gross profit is 20 for Ma, Lai of 12, and 24 for Ko. Now to uh, better see the impact of using activity-based costing, let's compare the GP rate and GP per unit of each product. The unit cost and the GP per unit. So for Ma, originally the unit cost is 44, but using ABC, the true cost is only 40 pesos. And the GP per unit, originally using traditional, is 6 pesos, but it provides 10 pesos because simply because the true cost is lesser using ABC costing than traditional. We are charging too much factory overhead cost using traditional costing. Well, in fact, it should have been lower. So it should have been 40 pesos only. And we are actually earning 10 pesos per unit instead of 6 pesos. For live product, we are earning 6 pesos using traditional because the computed unit cost using traditional is 9 pesos. Well, in fact, the true cost is actually higher, 13.17. So using traditional, we thought that we are actually earning 6 pesos. Well, in fact, we are earning only 1 pesos and 83 cents because it reflects the true cost of the factory overhead. We are charging less using the traditional in the live product, but in fact it actually consumes a lot of the activity or the factory overhead cost. So the true GP per unit is not 6, but actually 1.83 cents only. For product cost, for product co, the traditional GP per unit is only 1 peso because we are charging 9 pesos of the unit cost or a higher factory overhead rate using traditional costing. Well, in fact, it does not use that much some activities in the factory overhead, and therefore the unit cost should have been 7.58 cents only, and we are actually earning 2.42 per unit. So as you can see, the using ABC costing, the factory overhead are more responsive to uh, the activities that being performed in the production of that particular product. Now, let's compare this to plant-wide, multiple departmental, and ABC cost. Let's compare ABC costing to plant-wide and multiple departmental costing system. Using plant-wide, we are using a single uh, factory overhead for all the products being produced, regardless of the activities being performed in each product. We are applying the same factory overhead rate to all our products or services. As compared to departmental, we have different departments and we are producing, say, two kinds of product, and each department has their own factory overhead rate. and the basis of which uh, is depend on each department. They may use other bases like number of employees, uh, number of hours worked, machine hours, and other bases. But the point is, we have two different factory overhead rate, and each the factory overhead rate is dependent on the number of departments. So the FOH, or the factory overhead, being used to produce product A and product B will be charged of that rate when it is being produced. Now, if the product A and B will be uh, applied also by the overhead coming from department B, it will also be charged of its factory overhead rate. Now, let's compare this to activity-based costing. In activity-based costing, we may have also several departments. And say, for example, we are also producing uh, at least two products A and B. In each department, we have different activities. We have activity 1, activity 2, activity 3 in each department. Now, each activity inside each department accumulates cost that is part of the total factory overhead. And therefore, if each activity accumulates cost that is part of the FOH, each activity will have their own activity factory overhead rate. Now, if that activity contributes to the production of products A and B, that activity will be used to be charged to charge factory overhead to that particular product. So, for example, activity 1 under department A uh, will be applied to products A and B. Then we will use activity 1 of department A factory overhead rate. If activity 2 of department A will be used to produce products A and B, we will also use the activity 2 factory overhead rate under department A for both products A and B. Same with activity 3 under department A. So if department B uh, will also be contributory to the productions of product A and B, each activity's factory overhead will also be applied to both products. So for this one, activity 1 of department B will be applied to products A and B, same as activity 2 and activity 3. Okay, so the main point here is uh, instead of using a single uh, base for computing the factory overhead in the plant wide, we will be using activities as the base, also as compared to departments. Okay, that's it for ABC costing. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you learned something. Take care.